Okay, I think you guys will like this one because this is the shortest chapter probably that we have all year. So integumentary system, we just talked about, deals pretty much with your skin and the other accessory organs that are with it. So an organ, the term organ simply means any body structure composed of two or more different tissues. So when we say organ, we might think stomach, heart, something specific like that. But it's really anything that's made up of two or more tissues. So that being said, the skin itself is considered an organ. It's the largest organ in your body. And its accessory organs that we'll talk about specifically make up the entire integumentary system. So it's the skin and the organs or helper parts that are in the skin. So if we start looking at these, the functions of the skin, there are quite a few. You know, we think number 3, probably the most, protection. However, very responsible for maintaining homeostasis, a stable internal environment. It helps regulate temperature. It helps regulate water loss. So homeostasis, temperature between the receptors in the skin and then the muscles in your skin that produce heat, very important for temperature. Protection, prevents water loss. Sensory organs, just talked about temperature. There's thermal receptors in your skin, but there's also pain receptors, touch receptors. All of these sensory receptors are inside of your skin. Produce certain chemicals, anything from melanin that gives your skin color to, what are some other things? Different chemicals that maintain the fluidity or the elasticity of the skin. Helps to get rid of wastes. And actually very important for vitamin D. If you've not heard that before, when the sun shines on your skin, sunshine and a chemical reaction in your skin produces vitamin D. And you don't need a lot of sunlight for that. However, during the winter months, like there are days I'm at the school, in the morning it's dark, I leave the school, it's dark, obviously I'm not getting any sunlight, then it might be important to take a little vitamin D. Layers, epi, outside, so epidermis, avascular, A means no, no vessels, keratinized, it's dead, stratified, squamous, epithelial. So we just talked about this last chapter. No vessels, that's why you can scratch yourself and you don't bleed until you get down into the dermal area. So epidermis outside. Then I have the dermis, which is connective tissue. This is where your blood vessels are found. So if you do bleed, you know that you reached the dermis. Nervous tissue is also found there. If I scratch my hand a little bit, it's not going to hurt. There's not really any pain receptors. If I dig hard to where I actually bleed, there's going to be nervous tissue. There will be pain receptors and things like that. Subcutaneous. If you've ever had a sub-Q shot, I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but subcutaneous means directly under the skin. So subcutaneous or hypodermis, they're the same thing, is the layer underneath the bottom layer. It's underneath the dermis. The subcutaneous layer has a lot of areolar, lots of empty space, and adipose tissue. The job or functions of your subcutaneous layer, insulate. That adipose tissue fat is a great insulator. Insulates to conserve body heat. It impedes or slows down the entrance of external heat. And it contains your major blood vessels. So blood vessels are going to start in the subcutaneous layer and then they're going to rise, some of them will rise up into the dermis layer. So this diagram, I do expect you'll probably see something similar to this on your test. So if I look at this, here's my epidermis. It is my top layer. And we'll actually look at the different layers of those also. Dermis is a very large middle layer. And then subcutaneous is basically fat. There's some connective tissue that's going to connect here. Notice your larger blood vessels are going to be down here at the bottom. They're going to branch up. So this picture shows the three main layers. Inside of your layers, this is going to be a hair shaft that comes out of the skin. So that's the hair that you see on your arms or wherever. That hair shaft is going to go into your skin. If I look here, hair bulge is just a little spot towards the bottom. That part's probably not as important. But I do want you to know the hair follicle is the area that surrounds the hair. So the follicle surrounds the hair. The root of the hair is going to be down here at the bottom. If I start looking specifically at some of these, a sweat gland or a pore where sweat's going to come out. What else do I want to point out right now? Tactile corpuscle. These are going to be close to your muscles. Sebaceous gland is going to be found around your hair follicle. And that sebaceous gland secretes oils. If you did not have a sebaceous gland, even the hair on the top of your head would like stand straight up. So the sebaceous gland is responsible for producing oils that basically tames down your hair, it coats your hair. It's almost like a sweat gland. Arrector pili muscle. So every hair has a muscle, or hair follicle has a muscle that's attached to it. This is the muscle that gives you goosebumps. So when you get cold, this muscle contracts, pulling your hair straight up. So your hair stands up and you get a little bump, and that's your goosebump. And when that muscle contracts, that contraction produces heat, and that's what helps you to warm up a little bit. Lamellated or Pacinian corpuscle is going to be lower, and it's larger than your tactile corpuscle. Here I have another type of sweat gland, American sweat gland. You're just going to find randomly spread out. So here would be a sweat gland. Notice it's going to empty at the pore. Here is a sweat gland. It's going to empty at a pore. Anything else? That's probably the main parts. So this picture, do make sure that you study and label that one. As I look at the layers, the epidermis has special layers that go with it. So it is stratified squamous tissue. We talked about that. It lacks blood vessels. We talked about that. But then it has layers of cells within it. So the layer of cells that actually reproduces is called, and the one I use more commonly is stratum basal or basal. Base bottom is a way to remember this one. Also called stratum germinativum because it germinates, that's where it grows or produces. But typically I'm going to call it stratum basal. It's at the bottom, it's easier to remember. So it's the base of the epidermis, and it is well nourished by blood vessels. And I think I'll stop for a second there.